Good day, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to today's live stream. I'll be your host, Ezefuna Ijoma, and we'll be discussing AI in the writing room. With me are my lovely guests, Tobe and Kefe. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Okay. My name is Akpowovowo Emetekefe, and I am the creative team manager at Nsibidi Fables.
My name is Otuogbodor, and I'm a writer at Nsibidi Fables.
Welcome. Today we'll be exploring whether AI is a helpful tool or a creative crutch. Are we ready?
Yes.
Okay, so this is for our viewers. You can drop your questions and we'll respond right away. So let's begin. We'll start by discussing AI's impact on writing. And I have a few questions, so let's just dive right in. Okay?
Okay.
Firstly, I want you to discuss personal experiences or observations of how AI tools are being used in writing. How is AI specially transforming our writing?
So who do you want to take the question?
Okay, Kefe, this is for you.
All right. Okay. So I like to say that I see AI as a helpful assistant, and honestly, it has changed the way that I write. I use it to brainstorm, to add structure to my work, and even to take care of very small errors, when we write. So for me, anytime I'm trying to write and then I am stuck somewhere, I can just give AI a prompt that would help me get back. And last week, Saturday, I was at an event where someone talked about the fear of blank page. I have never thought about the fear of blank page because for me, before I start writing, I already know what I want to write. But then when I heard it, someone said the fear of blank page is one of the problems that AI has solved. And I can say, yes, that's true. For those that have it, that's the fear of starting out. You just want to start writing and you're not sure where to start from. And that's where structure comes in. And AI is also good, very good at giving you structure.
So, would you like to share your thoughts as well?
I personally don't incorporate AI in my writing, but it definitely does have a place in terms of, I think there's some writing suited for, I see a lot of people, and I've heard some people even complain about it, but I think I see people like when they want to do sort of maybe like a CV, that sort of thing, where they need to create. As some people have complained, but I really do think that like is well suited for things like that. And it's technology we've been using in many forms for different years. Like think of spell check and Grammarly, those sorts of things, right? Over the years, not even recently. Yeah, those sorts of things are so useful because even when you proofread yourself, it's very possible that your eyes are going to skip over errors you make, right? Little spelling things, little punctuation things. So that sort of inbuilt proofreader that's proofreading as you go along, it definitely has cut down, on people's errors so much over the years since people, have started working digitally and incorporating that sort of thing. Yeah.
Okay, you said something about problems, like people complaining about AI. So, can you give us some examples of what you mean by these problems or people having issues with AI?
I don't mean problems per se. I mean, like I was talking about CV writing, for instance. I've heard some people say that they would rather not an applicant for a job or something, use it to write on their CV and work on their CV. And I think, to be honest, that is specifically the sort of writing that it should be used for. I think, things that are more tedious than creative, I really think, it has a place there. And I don't think, it makes it an applicant weaker, if I'm being honest. if they use it to, it's still their accomplishments and their qualifications, right? And that they are aggregates it for them. So I don't think it makes them weaker. That's my honest opinion.
So this is just a general question for everyone. Do you think these changes are evolutionary or revolutionary?
Ultimately, I don't think, I guess I will shade towards evolutionary in that the way people are always look for edge with new technologies and things, the iterative nature of our civilization and our society, it's clear that this has sprung from that. In terms of a revolution, I don't know that that's true. That's going to be ultimately like a revolution that changes everything. But as a natural or as an extension of a pattern of living, a pattern of application, as a continuation of that trend, I do think so, yes.
For me, yes,
Thoughts?
yes. I would like to say both because when we talk about evolutionary, we're looking at it from the point of view of it helping us to make our work better, improve our writing with structure and all of that. Then for revolutionary, I would look at its speed. The way AI would generate stuff so quickly, it's like a game changer. It's not something that used to be. No matter how good of a writer you are, you cannot be as fast as AI when it comes to generating a structure or a scheme. It's quite fast, 3 seconds, and then it gives you something that you can work with per time. So I would say that yes, it is both evolutionary and revolutionary.
Okay. Thank you for that amazing answer. I think it's going to be revolutionary as well because every every time the trends change, there's always something new, and AI is almost ahead of us every time. So I think it's also going to be revolutionary as well. Thank you. So my third question goes to you, Toby. What storytelling elements will be most impacted? Character development, world building, or narrative pacing?
I think maybe the narrative pacing, if a writer were to use AI and AI tool in their fiction, I imagine that, it might pull from sort of the books like Story, Save the Cat, for instance, if you're writing a screenplay, it might try and incorporate, the structure that is preached in those sorts of books and those sorts of learning material. So I imagine that a lot of people might get narrative pacing that is standardized, if you are pulling from it. So I think narrative pacing is like a big one because I think narrative pacing is the most fundamental to structure. If you're, talking about storytelling, it's the most, there's guys that tell you, oh, by page 10, this should have happened, and by halfway through page 13, they should, that sort of thing. And I think that's an easy thing for an AI tool to pull from and look at. Yeah.
So, Kefi, would you like to
Yes,
share?
yes, I agree with Toby. I really do agree with him because I feel like for character development and world building, they still need the human touch, the human experience. But for pacing, for narrative pacing, AI can be used to work on that.
Okay, so can you discuss the areas where AI might have the most profound influence in world progress? That exactly.
Can you what?
Can you discuss the areas where AI might have the most profound influence in the writing process?
Structure.
Okay, can you tell
When
us
we
more
talk
about?
structure. Okay, so when you want to write, you need to have an outline that you follow. As a writer, the first thing that you think about when you want to write is to have structure. It guides you down to the very end of your writing. That's if you're writing a script, even if you're writing a story. So yes, structure is the number one thing that in terms of your writing process, and it's going to help you be on track steadily. Easy to track your work, and as long as you have structure, you can write and ensure that you're not deviating from the subject matter.
Okay, I have a question to ask. You mentioned something about humans and basically the soul. So, do you think AI can replace that? That's basically. Do you think AI can replace? Because now we find that if you ask AI to, write a story or give a narration or something touching, it actually deliver. So do you think AI can replace humans or that soul that humans bring to any project?
For me, when we talk about soul, we're talking about lived experiences. AI can mimic emotions just based on prompts that you have given it, but it cannot give you that soul, that experience. It still needs the human touch. That's why, as a writer, even when you use AI to write, even when you use AI in your work, you must ensure that you have your distinctive voice, your distinctive writing. Ensure that you're not writing in a way that your work is monotonous, which is what AI would give you most of the time. So when we talk about emotions and everything, it has to do with lived experiences, and it is in your hand as a writer to write from experience.
So can you say there are any limitations of AI in capturing the essence of human emotions in storytelling?
Shall I go ahead? Yes. So basically, all that we've been talking about are some of the limitations that it does not have the human experience that you have. AI can make mistakes. In short, I really didn't know much about AI for until I heard a lot of people say about it, and then I'm like, okay, what's this about? What's this? And then I started to check. So AI, when I started to check to do my research on AI, I realized that AI can give you some informations that are not true. Plus, it also puts a disclaimer and tell you some of these things. There's always a disclaimer somehow that tells you to, verify and all of that. So AI might make mistakes. AI cannot give you very true experiences. You still need to put your own human touch to it. So yes, those are its limitations.
I smell a debate. I smell a debate coming on. So, babe, would you like to share your thoughts?
No, I agree. It's those are I've definitely heard people talk about definitely the fact checking thing, and that it's some people will just generate answers and not verify, and then those things are blatantly untrue, and it's difficult to hold. The AI technology is not a person, so there's no one to hold accountable but yourself that used it in situations like that. So I've seen that cause some hardship for people. However, in terms of it having a soul or not having a soul, you know, I I think it's very hard to say how much value um the idea of a soul might bring at the end of the day, depending on what you're trying to get out of. Always, of course, has soul and brings that into it. But I'm not going to say that there are people who will not enjoy like AI generated stories, or that there are writers that might not make things that are actually worse than what AI will produce, right? So I think it's is a very layered question at the end of the day.
Yes, yes. And I also do feel that I feel there are some writings that you want to make that you should not even be too bothered about a lot of things. For example, you want to create a working scheme for yourself as maybe a social media manager. When you create a working scheme, when you give AI the prompt and then it comes out, there are lots of things you don't bother your head about. All you just need to do is confirm that these things will work, and then you go ahead. This is not the kind of scheme that it will give you, and then you need to touch it or write something new so that you don't need to tweak it to sound like your work, because what it's giving you is a scheme that you work with. The entire production, the implementation is on you. So at that point, you're not even looking for too much. You just take that structure and work with it. So that's just it.
Like to buttress what Kefe is saying, I mentioned, stuff like CV and just general, I think it's, can be implemented in sort of tasks that can be very tedious, looking at production too. A lot of production is paperwork. That's not creative paperwork, like making budgets and scheduling and things like that. And it would be so much better to be not brain power work, it's not creative work, it's really just man hours, it's just tedium, is like you're writing this down. And so it's very useful to have a tool that will just, do that for you. And if you have to make adjustments as you go along, you do. But rather than like having to write all of that from scratch, that's a waste of everyone's time, I think.
Okay, thank you for those answers. So I would like to ask, what can you say constitutes the heart in storytelling?
I think, okay, Kefe is talking, but she's muted.
Yes.
You muted yourself.
Yes, I forgot. Okay, so I was going to say, honestly, it's the real emotions that the writer pour in. That's minus AI on this one. The real emotions that you pour in as a writer. And these emotions come from what you have seen, come from what you have read, come from experiences that you have had. So that for me is the heart. And that's where you connect with your audience, because people want to connect. Your audience want to connect, and they must see something that they connect with. And that thing they connect with is the originality that you bring into your work, which is proper experiences you have had, things you have read, all of these things around your environment that you have seen.
Yeah, I will say specificity and surprise, I think, generally constitutes what heart is.
So can you expand on the surprise aspect?
I think there's some of my favorite stories, be they novels or films that I read, have surprise in them where it's not a twist per se. So it's not something that was set up and that sort of that the whole story is geared towards that. But someone says something that I didn't expect them to say. And then after you hear it, it makes sense. And it really gives you this moment where you have this complete empathy. You're seeing how someone who isn't you, a character that has been made of experiences that involve other people, is reacting to something that in a way that you didn't expect to happen, but it feels very real. And being in the journey you take to understand how this person is reacting in a surprising way, you really like develop this intense empathy. And I think in those moments, that's where the heart of stories lie.
Kefe, do you have anything to add to what we just said?
You're muted again.
Mike.
You're muted.
Okay, so I said that there's nothing more to add. I have said what I would have said earlier.
Okay, thank you. So now I want us to go into boundaries, creative boundaries. So is there a point where we need to set boundaries when putting in these prompts or asking AI, to do this and do that? Is there a point where we have to set boundaries where we have to,
I mean, AI should support, but we should not let AI be the lead on the writing. So let it be that it's the vision of the writer that's driving the entire story. So AI can be used as a tool, but it should not be that the voice that we are following on what we're writing should be AI's. That's why they say every writer has their own unique style, and we should see your style in your work. So if you, like I said earlier, AI comes off monotonous most of the time. So you need to teach AI how to write like you. But minus that as an individual, minus teaching AI how to write like you as a person need to drive the story on your own. That's why just use structure. When you have structure, use your words to fill it in. That way you maintain your voice and you set the boundaries between what you're using AI for and what you're bringing out.
okay, so that means you would say proofreading and editing after AI gives you what you ask for is very necessary, it's very important.
Yes,
Like go
yes,
through
quite.
it.
Yes,
Because
you
some
have to.
people like I myself, sometimes when I ask I kind of trust AI to do what exactly I tell it to without any, mistakes. But sometimes when I actually go through these things, I'm like, I didn't ask you to do that, AI. And then I have to now sit down, make the correction. So you're basically saying that that is as important as whatever AI does itself.
Yes. And sometimes when you tell AI to help you check for maybe errors where you have missed one or two things, sometimes your words or your sentences are changed. And that's the point where you have to go back to what you wanted AI to put in for you. Do you understand? For example, maybe you don't know where to um, continue your sentence, and then you told AI to just help you break it, and AI has gone on to give you like a truckload of words ahead, and that's not what you're looking for. All you just need to do is look for the place where the break was applied, and then you apply the break in your sentence and go ahead with your own words.
I agree that there has to be boundaries. I think there needs to be more regulation, definitely. Even going beyond writing right now, talking about is I think some of this technology has been used in very unethical and violating ways, that affects real people. And I think there, needs to be regulation around that ultimately. And then for writing and for art, really, I, of course, worry as, as a writer, as, an artist myself about plagiarism. We have to protect the work, the labor of workers. I think that has to be paramount. I think it's unfair, if it's been trained on like the work of some artists and writers without their permission and things like that. And I think that's it's tantamount to theft. But I think that there are still resources that it can be trained on without plagiarizing, without stealing. There's um, there's sort of open sources, accessible sources, and then there's also things in the public domain, for instance, like Shakespeare and Great Gatsby and all that kind of stuff. But I think if some still work, the work of artists that are still living, for instance, their work is in the public domain. I think it's unfair to them if their work is just totally plagiarized.
So the whole topic of plagiarism, how often does it occur? How often is it that you know AI would lift someone else's or something from someone else's work and give it to you? Does that happen often?
I don't think you can actually say how often. It just boils down to you as an individual. Because for me, I will not know exactly, because if I want to use AI, I demand structure. So for structure, you may not have to deal with plagiarism because you have to fill in the words yourself. Do you understand? But if, let's say, you want to do something out, because there's some things you want to do and you're not bothered about checking for all of these things, you can have AI write everything for you from A to Z. There's some things you want to do, and it's not a bother for you to use AI to write everything from A to Z. However, if you have to do that, then you have to confirm that everything you have written has not been written by someone else. So you need to cross-check your work and ensure that these things are not on, because everything is online. If it is plagiarism, then it is somewhere online or somewhere in the books. So you have to confirm, you have to cross-check and be sure that you're not lifting someone's work. So you cannot say how often it occurs, because most times AI will paraphrase. So it just depends on, you just have to keep checking. Plagiarizing.
I think ultimately, like I said, AI isn't a person. I think the library that they train, these technologies on is what should be brought into question at the end of the day, about not allowing plagiarized material in the library, first of all, rather than, you know, you can't hold the technology accountable. You can't say, oh, AI, you've been able, it's not a person. So it's about what is in the library of this technology. I think that's where the focus should be, rather than on the technology itself that can't be. It's not doing anything. It's not trying to do right or wrong. It's more abstract than that. So I think there should be focus on that. Definitely, there's been some efforts. I don't know how far they've progressed, but some people have made some efforts in like lawsuits and things like that, just to establish regulation. I think at the end of the day, that's really what you need. You just need regulation around things like this. It's just with all new technologies, the law always takes longer to catch up, to the reality of the technology. But then at the end of the day, it's like, cars were invented and then later on car regulation and traffic laws followed, right? So at the end of the day, regulation, you just hope and want regulation to catch up and to, create an equitable and fair environment for everyone. Yeah.
Okay, I'm still on these boundaries. I'm still on these boundaries. So speaking on boundaries, what information do we now? Where do we draw the line and say this information is exclusively for me as the writer? This is just what AI has to do. So how do we set boundaries then?
First of all, I will say that understand what you want to write. What you want to write, number one, is what tells you if AI should be very inclusive or just be an assistant. There are some things you want to write. For example, let's say you want to reply a mail, or you want to do your CV like Tobe mentioned. Or you want to create a scheme of work. These things you are not stealing somebody's work at this point. You're creating a structure. So it depends on what you want to write. That's what tells you when to draw the line. If you're writing a story for somebody, of course, you know that in writing a story, you have to put your own humanness in it. And aside that, there are also policies. There are policies that guide the people that you write for. Some companies, some people, some individuals do not care if you use AI or not. Some will literally tell you, please use AI to get me this. Because in implementation, we're just going to make some changes that at the end of the day, whether or not there's plagiarism anywhere, it is not going to reflect because we would have tweaked it over and over again. And at the end of the day, it becomes ours. Now, you know that when you're being caught for plagiarism is when you steal somebody's work verbatim. Now, if you if of course there's nothing new under the sun, like they say, so you must always, because they still know that in the process of bringing this thing to the end game, to the final product, there's still going to be changes in between. So whether or not to use AI, it doesn't stop, it doesn't cause any problem. AI just helps to fast track things and make their work faster. So it depends on who you're working with, what you're trying to do, that's when you know where to draw the line. And I strongly advise that we understand the individuals that we're writing for. We understand the purpose of our writing, and then we understand what exactly we are writing before we talk about bringing in AI.
So, did you have anything to add to what Kefe has just said?
I think she covered a lot of points, to be honest, and even gave me some things to think about. But yeah, like I said, I don't have, personal experience with it. But at the same time, yeah, I think definitely there's a lot of things, like I said, CV, emails. I'm just thinking about how, back before I had found sort of CV guides on the internet, right? Where, they would say this is a sample CV. So remove this sentence or like put your thing in this paragraph. And I sort of see using AI there to be the same as using what?
Like a template. Canva has those CV templates.
Exactly, those templates. You are supposed to just plugging in the thing, and then this is just a quicker way to do that, where it's like instantly plugging in your own information in that way, But as far as boundaries go, I think that for creative work, because people have plagiarized creative work even before AI, right? You could always either find scripts on the internet or download scripts, that sort of thing, right? So you could get someone else's script and then you're like, oh, I like this movie so much. I'm just going to use all this stuff. I like this thing was very cool, and and sometimes that stuff is an homage, and sometimes it's just straight up theft, and the line between those two is nuance. But and also there are like a lot of people who learned writing by doing that. And I don't think that is a bad thing, right? My writing experience started with liking a movie and then finding the script and reading it and sort of reading the things I liked about the movie, seeing them in the script. So I think you just have to have your personal ethical code and like understand where the line of plagiarism would be, and also what you as a writer, as an artist, what you are getting your fulfillment out of, right? Because I find it hard to believe that anyone who has a true artistic spirit will want to, get their work from somewhere else. I might look at things and get influences, but in terms of like thinking through what would be a cool way to start a scene and like getting an idea and sort of feeling proud of myself about things like that, how to start something. So I think, that desire, I think a lot of artists still have that. I don't think that is ever going to go away. And I just will go back to, as I always said, regulation, I think is a very important thing, like a very important place to start. And then, yeah, deciding for yourself what you want to get out of your art.
kind of like how you first off you were speaking about authenticity, and I really like that you mentioned that because right now there's this whole debate. So the debate isn't so new, but a lot of people are scared right now that AI is going to replace them in where they work, in animation as well. So people are afraid to, that they're going to lose their spots. They're going to lose the originality they bring. That AI is going. Everybody, people online are so scared about, how AI right now. All you need to do is put in these prompts, and AI is delivering your picture in 10 different animation styles. People are afraid. So off the books, how do you let people know that AI isn't here to replace them? They can work with AI. AI is not the enemy, in quotes. How do you, in that space, explain to someone that you can work with AI? Because the writer, you use AI and it helps you deliver faster, it helps you deliver whenever. How do you explain to someone like
Yeah,
that?
first of all, I will say that people are, if we're being honest, people are right to be worried. But, like I've said, AI isn't a person. So the issue is um, the people in charge of, companies and just sort of like this capitalistic structure we have where someone is willing to wants to use AI to replace a person, right? And that is where the issue is. Like, someone high up in a company or like a movie studio or whatever says, "Oh, I would rather use AI than hire an editor, hire a writer, hire a director, hire an animator." I think that's the issue, and the trend of humanity shows that that is a very real worry, right? So I don't think, in my opinion, that at least let me speak for myself, that AI could do work as good as I do, right? And so I believe that if someone values, you know, the artistry I bring, that they'll be able to see that difference. However, it's hard to say for sure that a lot of people are purely profit driven, and they don't value the art. So I think that human touch people at ease, and they will be more comfortable with the existence of this technology, and like maybe it will make some people even open to working with it. But I think the fear generates not from the technology itself. I don't think people are afraid of the technology per se, because I think you can see the difference. I see the difference and I value the difference, but between human made and AI generated. But I think that it's more about, oh, is this company, this production company, whatever, are these managers, these sorts of people, these executives going to ever, are they going to show that they do also see the difference and they care about the difference, and they want artists still to work, they see the importance of artists. I think that is really where the tension is, or at least should be, rather than you know AI is not a person and it's not like doing anything, right? It's people making the decision. Now, are they
So
going
safe
to?
to say, sorry, safe to say, you're trying to say it has to do with maybe the organization or the industry, letting them know that they are still valued and they
Exactly,
can
exactly.
work together. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Kefe, do you have anything to add?
And I was just going to add one more, and also I think the market at the end of the day. will decide some things.
Okay, so I will say that things are moving quite fast. AI is your assistant. And what matters most in your process or what you bring out in your writing is the purpose of your writing, the people, the individuals that you're writing for, or the company that you're writing for. These are things that you should consider in your writing and the outcome you want to have in your writing. So it's not just about not using AI because you want to keep your own voice. It's about understanding the space that you're in. Do you get? So for me, I like the natural voice. I like when it's you that is doing your work yourself because there's this originality it gives you. I remember I wrote one thing one time and someone reached out to me and said, "Did you experience this?" "Oh, I enjoyed reading it." I said, "What do you think?" Said the way you wrote it, the way you were just throwing jabs and putting words here and there, I loved it. I said, "Yes, that's my style. That's how I like to write." Do you understand? But then sometimes you have to, if you cannot beat the pace that is in demand in the space that you're working at that point in time, you have to go by the rule of the people there. I'm not saying that as a writer, you shouldn't have your own ethics. Do you get? That's why we have different spaces that you can also share your own personal work as a writer. Now, if you can beat the timing, if you can beat the pace that whoever you're working for or the company you're working for is giving you, go ahead and use your own voice. I like that. But if you cannot beat the pace, if there's too much of things to be done at the same time, and these people are saying to make things faster, use AI. We don't mind.
Speaking of the voice, how do we let people know that, okay, your voice is your voice, nothing can replace your voice? How do we encourage writers in the writing room to that they are authentic regardless of AI or not, that their voice still matters in the space?
Okay. I'll say again. If you have, okay, there's just a lot of information coming to my head at this point. But then if you use AI to do anything, remember that you have to put it in your voice. If you don't have a structure that says, use AI for me. Do you understand? If you're writing personally as a writer, your work you want to show to other people, use your own voice. That's your time. You know the time frame that you have given yourself. Use your own voice. If you're writing for a company that says, there are some companies that say, we don't want AI writers. They state it out. I've seen it like in different places. They will tell you they don't want people that use AI to write. So if you're working for companies like that, ensure that you're using your own voice. And I'm sure they understand that human beings don't have the same pace as AI. So that's that.
I
Do
think,
you have any? So yeah, okay.
yeah, I think if you want to make, writers feel valued, in writers groups, just hire writers. I think if you get hired, at least you know that you're offering some value. That's my urge to all, companies and things.
Okay, so I have a question, Farov. So how do you think AI might change, the writer and animator relationships?
I It might make some things quicker, I think, to be honest, which might I think you're still going to need, as a writer, I think you're still going to need an animator. But I think it might make some things quicker, and make some communication easier in terms of, well, no, I was thinking it would look like this rather than like this, things like that.
Okay, thank you. I heard what you said, but okay, you're actually correct. But along the line, let's say 10 years from now, when because like Kefe said, AI is here to stay. So you either get with the program or you do your own thing. But let's say 10 years from now, when it's actually very public that AI is now writing scripts, AI is now doing this, AI is now doing that. Do you think we would have moved past the whole how we feel about AI and people just get reprogrammed. Do you think like 10 years from now, everybody just be like, accept it and just know that, okay, AI is here to stay, AI is here to do these things. We might as well just like what they do, love what they do, watch what they do.
Um, for creative, as far as creative work goes, I am not certain about how, what the future capacity for that technology is going to be. People, whether companies, whether consumers, that are willing to accept things that are not of quality, right? That is where the problem might arise. But I think there have always been, even before technology, like people who wanted to exploit and take advantage of others' creative labor. But at the same time, there are people who have also wanted to foster, such wonderful and fruitful creative relationships and creative environments. And I don't think that is going to change. I don't think the world is just going to be completely bereft of people who are interested in that. So I think for writers, animators, I think that there will still be, like, let's say, it becomes more feasible to make a longer form animation, right, from just prompts. I think that there will still be writers who will, write a story and want an actual animator to, help them bring it to life, because they'll care about the art and they'll see the quality difference. But at the same time, there'll be people who will not care, right? But there's always been people who don't care about the quality of things like that. There's been people who aren't artistically minded. So ultimately, I think it's going to remain the same.
Okay, do you have anything to say or to add to
Yes,
what Toby just said?
yes. While I'm not so sure what it will be in the future, I understand that looking at everything that we're seeing right now, how people embraced AI and started to use AI to do one or two things, improve their works and all that. I feel like people will embrace it more, but they will still value the human voice. They will still value the human experiences because nothing beats that sort of connectivity. I remember when I first heard about AI, and I'm like, okay, so, and then I was told, ChatGPT, you can do this with it, you can, okay. So I started to check, I'm like, I'm not going to use this. I'm not going to do that. But then I took my time one day and said, you haven't understood this properly and you're saying you're not going to use it. How about you understand this of the prompts that they have gotten, that they have, used to get structure from ChatGPT and then transform their own content. So I would say that a lot of people will embrace it because of the good things that AI is bringing to individuals right now, because they're seeing the gain of using AI. So a lot of people will embrace it. But for sure, I know that people will still crave that connectivity and they will not forget the human experience. They will still want the human touch. And both AI and the human writers will still be in the same space. But what I know is they have to collaborate. Collaboration is key because as a writer, if you don't grow with trends, you see yourself moving like, steps backward. And you don't want when they say it's one and then you're getting there by seven because you are not, trying to pace it. So yes, both of them will still exist, but a lot of people will not really care because they're looking at the gains, they're looking at the value. These things there's still a lot of things that are not balancing yet with AI, but most people have turned blind eyes to that and they're focusing on the gains, which means that even in the future, a lot of people will still not pay attention more to the things that can go wrong when you use AI. They will just be looking at the gains and, that will really take a lot of people's mind and that will be it.
Yeah, I think one thing with human beings is as long as they're enjoying it, they don't want to know how it's going to how bad it can get or the consequences sometimes. So I agree with you. But you said something about human experience. So do you believe that AI at some point will begin to start replicating human experiences? Like I know what I've okay, um for example, say in our relationships, people we've met, heartbreaks in quotes, do you think at some point AI would be able to tell you or would be able to replicate what you feel or what you felt in those moments?
What I know is AI will get better. You know why I say that? It's because I have seen different things online where people will tell you that they need you to teach AI. Teach AI to speak pidgin. Teach AI to do this thing. Teach AI to know your tone. Teach AI to, to write like you. Teach AI to do this. Teach AI to do that. AI is improving by the day. So AI will get better. But whether AI will be able to replicate human emotions exactly how it is, I am not so sure. Because even when we talk about peculiarities, look at it. We're teaching AI to be like us. So even your peculiarity, you are teaching AI. Do you get? So for now, I really cannot say how good AI will be, but I know that AI is getting better faster. So as a writer that is not using AI, you have to ensure that you up your game or you collaborate with AI.
I think when it comes to AI, everybody just has to come on board because, like you said, AI is growing every day. Tell AI to write a touching message for your mom. It was her birthday, and because ChatGPT, you can speak into ChatGPT and it will give you exactly what you're saying if you can put it down in words. So it can write exactly how you're feeling. Oh, mom, like I appreciate everything you did for me. Language isn't even a barrier anymore. Now AI can, say the meaning of what you're saying in Igbo, in Yoruba. It can, the meaning of what you're saying, interpret it in different languages and everything. So, like you said, AI is growing. I believe AI is growing very fast. So, do you
Yes.
have anything to add?
And AI cannot fact check for now. Let me not say cannot fact check. They still have data that they work with. But you as a writer still need to, if you give AI a prompt for something that is data driven or an information that whatever it is, you need to fact check so that you don't plagiarize like we talked about earlier. And so that you're not putting A where there's supposed to be B and B where there's supposed to be A. So yes, AI has that limitation for now. So we need, as writers, you still need writers to cross-check all of these things, to do the research and ensure that even as you have used AI.
Very far. And I believe we've come to the end of the conversation. I'll say a very big thank you to Toby and Kefi for coming on here and answering all our questions and more questions. I believe the conversation on AI is never ending. So I think we should meet again. What do you think? To discuss more on this. Because we can't finish everything now. It's growing every day. And while there are more questions to answer, there are also more trends and more things coming on. So we'll definitely be seeing again. Are we on the same page?
Sure.
Yes, so thank you to our viewers for joining. We loved having you here, and we hope you're able to take one or two things home on this, and we'd love to interact with you based on what you were here today. So thank you, Toby and Kefi, for joining. We'll see you again on the next call, or
Thank you.
next time we meet. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.